Okay, sweet. Ben. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome back to the Money Waffle Fantasy Basketball Podcast. This is episode 3. This week we're doing something special.
Oh, I cannot wait.
I'm so stoked. We're calling this one the Trade Theory episode. Ben is known notoriously, infamously, famously in our league as like the trade czar. You're offering trades every week, 4, 5, 6 trades a week. And
that you know about.
Right. And it's gotten to the point that you're like the guy that initiates trades, but you're also the guy that makes everybody upset because they think that the trades are unfair.
Yep.
And so then there's a bit of a conspiracy against you
to
not let the trades go through. So I think sometimes people unfairly judge the trades you send because they assume that you're going to rip them off.
Yeah. I get that. I think when you're a volume trader like myself, the
Berkshire Hathaway over here.
Here we go. I don't know what percentage of my trades. It's hard for me to put a number on the percentage of trade offers I send that are like objectively bad. Where like if there was a jury of our peers, they'd be like, "F you, you idiot." I don't know what that percentage is. Like it might be 80% terrible. It might be like 50% terrible. But there's enough of the terribleness for just people to just not even really pay attention to when they might make sense, I think. And so that I get that. That makes total sense. But what I've now started to do in my spare time, which I have none of, but when I do, I just start drafting trades for 2 other teams.
Yeah.
Like what if Tommy made a trade with Cohen? How'd that look? This is how it's a great way for me to pass the time.
Right. I think it's a brilliant idea to frame a podcast around it too, because it's useful for everybody in the league. And let's say you're the one of 4 people that watched our podcast that aren't in our league, which they watched like 15 minutes of the podcast and then they were like, "This thing is fucking so specific."
I didn't even know we had non-league members watching.
Yeah. And it's like useful for people outside of the league, right? This is like general trade theory. And it's kind of also breaking down our sort of Z-score evaluations of the players in the trades, and then how you and I both evaluate trades beyond those Z-scores. What are the other factors that we look at to make trades? Because I think like we both love making trades. I'm just like I'll make a trade any time that I feel like is mutually beneficial or benefits me. Although like usually I say like, this is bad for you to make this trade. Why are you doing this?
You're good at that.
But that's just because I like parity in the league.
Yeah.
I
think that, maybe one point that I should make that I make probably 2 or 3 times a year, and everyone's probably sick of hearing, but you can't convince me otherwise that trades are not the best way to improve your team. I mean, you really only have 2 options. It's trades and waiver.
Yeah.
And most of our league, if not all of our league, chooses waiver.
Yeah.
And
defers to waiver.
It kind of confounds me, confuses me as to why that is. And there's different schools of thought and around like how you want to play fantasy, whether winning is even the objective. Sometimes it's not, and sometimes it's just, hey, I don't have the time to put in to think about trades. And that's okay. That's why we're doing this.
Yeah. This is the reason.
Let me do it for
Hopefully one of these goes through.
I hope that there are folks listening to this afterwards in our league or in any other league that says, I want to make a trade.
Yeah.
I'd like to improve my team. Help me. I would love to do that, man. I'm free for hire. I won't even bring up my players.
Comment on the YouTube video. We will evaluate the trade.
Trades
for
are.
Sure.
Trades are.
I think like the main reason people don't want to do trades is that they're worried about the volatility that a trade is going to present.
Right.
Because, the unknown unknowns of a player that you don't have on your team is scarier than just saying like, okay, I'm going to drop Mike Conley and pick up Keontae George just for today.
Yep.
I think like you've made a pretty good example of why trading works.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many times are you in the league? Twice?
I think so.
That's the most of anybody in the league, right? And it's not because of your drafting. Because you're a really bad drafter. Across the board.
Bad.
Really bad.
Very bad.
Smart on the waivers. even better on the trade. So I think that there's a really good argument for trades.
Yeah.
And the big thing with this episode too is the trades that you've come up with do not involve yourself.
Right.
You're like,
that's right.
So I've come up with some trades that involve Ben that we'll talk about at the very end of the episode. Mm-hmm. But Ben has pulled up trades that have nothing to do with him to sort of give his theory that trades are good some weight.
Yep, exactly. And I think I also want to kind of talk through my thought process when I think about constructing a trade, right?
Yep.
It's not just plucking players that I like from other rosters, because that is not likely to get a deal done, right?
Yep.
You got to think about kind of how you go about building it. So I want to give a glimpse into that. And I think the order in which I want to talk about these teams in our league is kind of a power ranking in my mind too. So it's kind of two birds, one stone.
Yeah.
Should we jump in?
I think we should jump right in. I think that you introduce the trade, you give your thoughts, I'll give my thoughts back, we'll go from there.
Yep, you got it. I think the team whose roster, I'm going to kind of go by like best rosters to worst rosters in my opinion, as I mentioned. And so I'm starting with Chris. So in the standings, I think his team is number one. It is number one in the standings,
yeah.
And I think he has the best roster. I think it's, in this scenario, totally fine to stand pat for him. To say like, hey, I'm in first, like why shake things up?
Yeah.
There have been times though when I've been in first and I just, you need to be looking over your shoulder. You need to be like a little paranoid when you're atop the standings in some sense. His team is really good, but when constructing a trade, and you'll hear me probably talk about this in a couple places, it's like, where are you too good? Where do you have players and positions that you actually don't need and can reallocate those players to fill some gaps? And I think for him, I don't know that he really needs Bam Adebayo or OG Anunoby. Two great players. I'm not saying they're not great. I'm just saying OG's value, I think, comes primarily in percentages, blocks, and steals.
Yeah.
And he is so good at those that he could trade those and get something back. Bam is kind of jack of all trades, but he also has Şengün and a couple other guys that do similar things. I think a good trade for Chris is to go get Joel Embiid.
Mm.
Because, and I'll talk about this when I talk about Paulie's team, Joel Embiid is an absolute Powerball ticket that you're getting for, $1 and may yield $1 million.
Yeah.
He, not long ago, was the best player in fantasy. So I started by thinking, what if he traded them? He also is not good at points. Chris's team, his top point scorers are Kyrie at 23 points, but Kyrie misses a lot of games.
Yeah.
Then it goes down to Trae Young at 21, whose average is coming down, and he's got Cam Thomas coming back, who I think is going to score a lot of points, but he's injured right now.
Yep.
I think Embiid being able to score 35 points a game or something brings him right back up. So I think the trade could be Bam Adebayo for Joel Embiid plus something.
Yeah.
And that's something I've plugged in here is Joel Embiid plus Julius Randle for Bam Adebayo, and then Miles Bridges coming back.
Okay. So I think the points argument is a great one. And I think for Chris, his worst category right now is threes.
Yeah.
And on the waivers, I think threes is the easiest thing to pick up. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the easiest thing. Like, there's a million 3-and-D guys. That'll maybe get you 12 points a game, but that will get you 2 or 3 threes. So
yeah,
it's a pretty easy thing to get better at through waivers. I would say points is possibly something that Chris is worried about. Mm-hmm. He's in the upper half of the league as far as the points are concerned. So I don't know if he should be executing a panic move here, and that's kind of what I think a trade for Joel Embiid is. Mm-hmm. Looking at Joel Embiid here, I think a good over-under on his games played for the rest of the season is 30, and I'm taking the under. You know what I mean?
Like from here on out?
From here on out.
Yeah.
Everybody else in the trade plays 50-plus games. Mm-hmm. Maybe 48, barring catastrophe, they're playing a full suite of games. That trade makes Chris better in points, but I think it's actually a pretty insignificant amount compared to where the rest of the league is at. Mm-hmm. Because also, like, you're giving up 20 games of this guy who's scoring at a high level. So that means you're basically bringing on Julius Randle, who's a fine scorer, fine three-point shooter.
Yep.
But you're bringing on basically another waiver spot for like half of the games the rest of the season. Mm-hmm. If your argument is you need to win points and threes, I just don't know if Chris does that. I mean, I think it makes him worse in every category except points and percentages. It doesn't make him better in threes, which is like I said, that's fine. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if I'm Chris, I'm saying no, but that's also because like of my preconceived notions of Joel Embiid at the beginning of the season. I've been talking shit about him as a fantasy player since before we started. I think it's a really smart trade and a perfect analysis of Chris's team. Mm-hmm. I don't think Chris makes a move.
I think you're right. The second best roster in my book right now is...
This is kind of a hot take, and he's top 5.
Is Mike Barrett. I think Mike Barrett's roster is great. And
dude, after the draft, I thought his team was so dog shit. He's just been brilliant this season.
It's been super good. I mean, I think everybody he drafted has done really good things except for one guy. I mean, his front court, so his big men are Sabonis, Cat, and Porzingis. That's really good.
Yeah.
Having Sabonis, Cat, and Porzingis is great.
Yeah.
And his guards are Cade Cunningham, Devin Booker.
Dude.
Those are great. So he's got 5 like bona fide really good players. Porzingis, I don't know, people have different opinions. And he kind of fills those 2 bookends with guys like Pritchard, who's been incredible, Bane, who's been bad, Cam Johnson, who's been good. You picked up Jeremy Grant. I just think it's well balanced. As I look at this roster, I don't think you want to get rid of Cade or Booker or Sabonis or Cat. I kind of think that those 4 players are pretty much untouchable. I wouldn't trade him if I were Mike, but I think everybody else is fair game. And the one guy on this roster that I would trade now if I'm him, and I actually think I might trade for if I'm other teams, is Desmond Bane. Mm-hmm. So Bane's averaging 14 points a game this year, which is odd. Like, you really would have guessed he'd be doing a lot more than he's doing.
Yep.
And I was looking at trading for Desmond Bane. I texted Mike a couple times about him. He's like, no way. So I think Mike believes that Bane will get back to 20-point land, 19-point land. I don't know if he will. I mean, here's why.
He's 17 at most.
I think Memphis really likes Scottie Pippen Jr. I think Memphis really likes Santi Aldama. I think Memphis really likes Jalen Wells. I think they traded for Marcus. Well, I know they traded for Marcus Smart.
Yeah.
They also have Zach Edey, who they want to win Rookie of the Year. There's like 5 guys.
Dude, yeah.
Climbing up this Memphis roster, and Bane is just getting shuffled down.
Yeah.
So if I believe Desmond Bane isn't going to bounce back, I would trade him. I would trade him, and I would try to get one guy that is going to be a bona fide core piece for Mike. That guy happens to be on your team.
Yeah.
Desmond Bane for Fred VanVleet is my offer.
After all that?
After all that. But here's why, and I'll get to your team in a second. I don't think Fred VanVleet does anything for your team.
Really?
I think he's a good player, and that's why you have him, and I like him as a player, but I think what he brings is what you're already good at. Like, I think you could wipe Fred VanVleet's stats from your team, which are steals, assists, threes. You're so good at those already. Mm-hmm. And you could use another small forward. Bane is going to bring percentages. He's decent across the board, and maybe has some upside. Maybe he bounces back.
Yeah.
So
Here's my quick response to that before we dive further into like my team's needs or whatever.
Yeah.
I think this is like possibly a mutually beneficial trade. I think this is a pretty smart trade.
Yeah.
I think the deal with the trade though is that the differences are actually pretty negligible.
Mm-hmm.
The points difference, if you're projecting Desmond Bane to be 17, which I am, I mean that's like barely a Z-score difference.
Yeah.
Points would maybe get better. His steals would definitely get better. He'd get more assists and threes. I'd get better percentages. The issue, though, is kind of what you alluded to, which is Desmond Bane's declining value.
Yeah.
This is the lowest usage rate he's had since his rookie year.
Mm-hmm.
I do not like low usage guys. Mm-hmm. This is the thing I talk about kind of a lot is a low usage guy's improvements in percentages provide small benefits to your fantasy team. A high usage guy increases his 3-point percentage, mm-hmm. and his Z-score value jumps up like 10 spots in the overall power rankings.
Yep.
And to that end, Fred VanVleet is like a historic 38% 3-point shooter. Mm-hmm. This year he's shooting 30, right?
Yeah.
So for me, what I see is an underperforming steal specialist, mm-hmm. who, if he increases his 3-point percentage by like a very small amount, mm-hmm. he's shooting up way, way higher than Desmond Bane. And so while I see the trade as like pretty dang smart, I don't know if I would do it, because my theory about Fred VanVleet and my team is I want to be the best in the league in like 3 categories, and then just like let the rest of the chips fall where they may. Like I never have to worry about steals or field goal percentage or assists.
Yep.
And like sometimes like I think points I just have locked up because my team is so deep. But yeah, I mean, it's not to say that the trade is not good. I actually think like there's a chance it does benefit the both of us, mm-hmm. and that's basically like, does Desmond Bane get more usage? Does he get better? So.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's a little bit of theory here, and your team was the next team I wanted to talk about. So I think maybe we just go there. When I look at your team, I see like 7 of the exact same guys, which, as you just said, is by design. And these guys are these point guards that shoot, score, and steal. Mm-hmm. And to name them, it's Garland, Poole, Fred VanVleet, Jalen Brunson, DeJounte Murray, Mike Conley.
Yeah, it's a ton of dudes.
It's a ton of dudes. And you're right, you're going to crush at the things that all 6 of those guys do the same.
Yep.
But I wonder if trading one of them, you will still crush at those things because you'll have 5 of those guys now, or 4. Mm-hmm. You'll still crush at those things. You'll just raise your percentage to win a category elsewhere. That's what I would be doing if I were you. I get the whole let's over-index in a place. My team, I didn't intend for this to happen, but I don't know how many more assists I have than anybody else, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
And that was the impetus for me trading Josh Giddey. Now, I know people give a rat's ass about Josh Giddey, but like he did nothing for my team.
Nothing.
I didn't want the assurance of winning assists by having him around. Give me a chance to win some other categories by trading him. And I think for your team to trade one of those guys or cut Conley, which I think you can do.
Oh yeah, he's
your streamer spot. Yeah, so I think he's just on the squad for now. But I would trade one of those guards if I'm you, and I would try to get something different back. Mm-hmm. And I totally understand not trading Brunson and Garland and DeJounte. Fred is a guy I would trade if I were you. Because, yes, I think his percentage will come up. But when he used to get usage, it was because his team had only a few good players.
It's true.
And I think Houston wants to play Amen Thompson. And I think as the season goes on, this 3rd pick in the draft they just took, Reed Shepherd, who they've invested in.
Yeah.
And Fred's, I don't think Fred's arrow in Houston, I'm not trying to diminish his value. We could be wrong about, it's just like Bane.
Yeah.
I think there's just a bit of a question mark on these guys, and I would, if I'm you, he still has a ton of value because I think he's still going to be good. Mm-hmm. I would trade Fred VanVleet.
Okay.
And so if it's not Desmond Bane, I think a guy that you might target is Lauri Markkanen.
Who I've had in the past.
You've had in the past. And I think it's actually more of a Fred VanVleet. So the trade I've got mocked, because I think Fred VanVleet for Lauri Markkanen, I would want a little bit more value back if I'm you. Yeah. I would say it's close. Lowry might make more sense for your team because of the guard situation you've got. But what can I add from, that's Cohen's team. Cohen's got Lowry. What can I add with Lowry to bring back more value? And a guy that has been so awesome this year for fantasy that no one, I don't think we haven't talked about him yet, is John Collins.
Yeah.
Like, it's a little bit, Utah in general is kind of confusing, but the trade is effectively Fred VanVleet and Michael Porter Jr. for Lowry and John Collins. And before I turn it over to you to evaluate that one, let me just rattle off what John Collins has been doing. Nate's nice team. Ooh, we got to change that.
Yeah, we really got to get a new team name, Doc.
Collins, he's 53 from the field on 89% free throw, making a 3.5 a game. Mm-hmm. 18 points, 8 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 1.2 steals, and a block. On a per game basis this year, John Collins is 27th. Anthony Edwards is 25. So here it goes. Ant at 25, LeBron at 26, Collins at 27, Fox at 28, Tyler Hero at 29.
Yeah, jeez.
I don't believe John Collins will keep doing this. But I think there's a very real world where he's a top 60, 70 guy because he just kind of across the board. And for you to trade Fred VanVleet for that plus Lowry, I think makes sense for your team.
Yeah. Yeah, the logic is super sound. This one, the change in the scorecard, so to speak.
Yeah.
Again, it's like a pretty insignificant change for me, but it's very significant for Cohen. Like, it would make him quite a bit better, and me, it might just be a wash.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the main reason I wouldn't do it, just because I don't think it makes me more competitive, and because, like, when I'm not getting more competitive, but somebody else is just getting a tremendous amount better,
yeah,
I'm just like, like, that just hurts me long run. Mm-hmm. And so me jumping up in percentages and rebounds, but losing in assists and barely moving up in blocks, it's like, I don't want to be good in rebounds. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I do not care. And I'm actually actively avoiding strategies or like trades that lead me away from dominating in these other categories that aren't rebounds. John Collins is so weird to me. So, like, he just played like 40 minutes in this blowout and had just a fucking ass game.
Yeah.
When things like that happen, I worry about what coaches see the rest of the season looking like for their players. And, like, why would you play somebody that good that many minutes in a blowout game? I have no idea.
I don't know what Utah's doing.
He has a bad, like, that was a bad game he played. Yes, 40 minutes is good, but
yeah, a bad game for Collins though. It was still like 14-6, hit 1 or 2 threes, made all his free throws, 2 steals and a block, or 2 steals and 2 blocks. Like, I just think, and this is a difference in opinion, you don't need to punt field goal and you don't need to punt rebounds. If you trade Fred VanVleet and Michael Porter Jr. for Markkanen and John Collins, you no longer are punting those categories.
Right.
You give yourself a chance. You give yourself a chance in those categories, and you don't lose on your steals and assists superiority.
Dude, Markkanen has basically sucked for the month of December, so it would be like a buy low on Markkanen.
It's a lot like the Bane thing.
Yeah.
Markkanen totally right. And Bane, every other year, are top 30 guys.
Yeah.
They're great guys.
Dude, Markkanen has just been sucking ass. I have no idea what's going on in Utah. I mean, there's so many games where he's playing 25 minutes or 30 minutes or 31 minutes. Like,
this is what I'm saying. I just dropped Keontae George an hour before this podcast.
Yeah.
I love Keontae George.
Me too.
I think he's going to be good.
Yeah.
that team has a weird amount of mouths to feed, a weird amount of young players.
Yeah.
And they don't know who the cornerstones of the franchise are, and I just don't think, I don't want any part, I don't think I want part of the Utah Jazz.
You mentioned another trade with my team.
Yeah.
That I want to talk about. And I'll just tee it up. To the same logic you brought up before, taking one of these point guards and moving them hopefully to a team to make it mutually beneficial. Danny's got a team that is, I think, in need of what DeJounte Murray has to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Ben offered me a trade, me trading Danny DeJounte Murray for Scotty Barnes. And I think it objectively makes both teams better. This is so far the best trade you've come up with. So the reason that is, Scotty's injured until the 1st of January. That sucks. That would suck for me.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the thing that evens us out for the rest of the season, right? It doesn't make Danny's team different at all on a whole. But that would be minus without the injury, it wouldn't make him different. But with I think it's 7 or 8 more games played from a top 30 guy or a top 40 guy, it makes Danny's team so much better. And it does make me better as well. The changes, I would get a little better in points. I would get better in rebounds, which I already said I don't really care about, but I would get better in this I think it's field goal percentage. Sorry. My percentages that I want to bring up to get more competitive, I would get better at, while only getting a little bit better in rebounds and not getting much worse in steals and assists. I think for Danny, he's getting significantly better in in threes, assists, steals, and free throw percentage. And again, because he's getting 7 more games out of a really top guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he would do it, because I think the problem with trades, of course, and this is back to the first discussion that we had, is that people have this affinity for the guy that they picked on opening night, because it's, I think, largely about wanting to be right about these takes that we have. It's a thing, it's a trap I fall into for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted to be right about DeJounte, but I think you look at the math here, and I don't think either of us should say no to a trade that is like this.
I think so too. I had put this as Danny's trade, so I was going to bring it up at that point, but let's just go straight there to Danny's team.
My bad, sorry, Danny.
No.
I want to talk more about your team.
This is actually, the segue is perfect.
What's your favorite memory of you eating a dilly bar?
A dilly bar?
Favorite memory of eating a dilly bar?
Well, I'll have to think of the last time that was.
Little League, definitely.
I remember my parents would actually take me to get dilly bars after every gymnastics meet.
You know, there was a DQ by the park that I worked at in college, so probably back then.
I eat so many of them, I don't think there's a specific memory that stands out. I mean, I've eaten thousands.
No matter if we won or lost, if we got rained out, we always got dilly bars.
They insisted on going to Dairy Queen.
I've eaten 2 a week for the last 25 years, which is 2,600 dilly bars.
I'm actually trying to rack my brain for a specific memory, but
So I guess 2,600 great memories.
I know my dad buys the really big boxes of dilly bars now, and my mom likes them too, but you just cannot compare.
the more I think about it, the more I think I've never had one.
I can't think about baseball without thinking about dilly bars.
I'm curious if you want to try one.
Right now?
Right now?
Yeah?
I was hoping you'd ask.
Oh.
I haven't had one in years.
Oh, fuck me.
Oh, fuck.
Are you kidding me?
That's magic.
I would have definitely remembered this.
Okay, we're back. Ben, you want to talk about Danny's team?
I do, yes. So I really like Danny's team when it's healthy. I think having a core that is Anthony Davis, Scotty Barnes, Paolo Banchero, Jimmy Butler, and Brandon Miller as a 5 forwards, effectively, that are super good on offense, can get you assists, rebounds, points. Some of them shoot, but more so kick ass on defense. All of them is incredible, and you add that to Kobe White and Quickly at the guard positions, which I think are fine, plus Zubac, who's been really good at center, and then Matherin's being fine. That's 9 really good players. I think the issue right now is that 4 of them are hurt, and that includes Brandon Miller that just sprained his ankle. So I think having Banchero out for however many more weeks, Barnes out for however many more weeks, and then Brandon Miller and Quickly means that Danny effectively needs to make a trade. I think he should make it now so that he doesn't roll out 8 healthy players or however many healthy players. And he's also thin at guard. Right, I mentioned Kobe White and Quickly is really his only guards, and Quickly's hurt, which is why I think you are the best trade partner, because you're deep at guard. And so the two trades that I kind of was drafting up, and they're pretty similar. I think it's one of Scotty Barnes or Paulo Banchero going to you.
Yeah.
I don't know which one of those guys is better. For your team, it might be Barnes because of the defense stuff.
Yeah. I think that's exactly right. Like, I would prefer Barnes because of my core strategy about like steals, my core steal strategy. Yeah.
And then if I'm Danny, I try to get one of your healthy guards. So I'm trading away a hurt forward, and I want back either DeJounte Murray or Darius Garland.
Yeah.
And those guys are similar but different. I would imagine you'd want to send DeJounte back. I don't know.
I would send both.
Yeah.
I would send either guy because they're basically the same guy. They're both, in my view, the 45th-ish best player in the league.
Yep.
If we're ranking everybody by rounds, which is kind of how I like to break it down.
Yeah.
They're both like 4th or 5th round guys.
Mm-hmm.
I have a ton of 4th and 5th round guys.
Yeah.
Right. That's how I start. Like that's how I drafted. And yeah, no, I think it's as I said before, like that is an objectively super smart trade. You presented to me another trade involving Danny and also involving Tommy. I'll say the trade, and then do you want to give your analysis of it?
Yeah.
So you're thinking Danny trading Scotty Barnes and Zubac for Tommy's Nikola Vucevic and Pascal Siakam. I just want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. It's in the same realm, same idea, thought process of Danny having to trade away one of these hurt guys for healthy guys. And I think Tommy has a really, really good team. I really like the Harden-LaMelo stack. I think adding Hero and Paul George as wing bombers to that gives you a nice core 4. And then I think Vooch and Jarrett Allen are dependable, but I'm not wowed by kind of that Vooch, Jarrett Allen, Siakam, Tobias, CP3, Draymond group. I think the best trade for Tommy is to steer clear of trading Harden, LaMelo, Hero, PG, and to try to package 1 or 2 of those kind of big men or forwards for somebody elite. And I know he loves Scotty Barnes. So if I'm Tommy, I'm going after Scotty Barnes. And I'm making it worthwhile for Danny. Mm-hmm. And I think if he could trade Scotty for Vooch, or if he could trade Vooch and Siakam for Scotty, that might make sense for both teams.
With so much love, this one's bad.
Okay.
This one's bad. This one, I think they both get worse. Is it partially because Scotty's out until January? Kind of. Because if you're Tommy, basically what you're doing is you're saying, I'm going to trade, I guess, like Vooch, probably top 50 guy, Pascal. I'm not the biggest fan of Pascal, but you're trading those two back, or you're trading those two away to get guys that, Scotty's got 6 less games. Zubac is on a team that I think has 13 back-to-backs the rest of the year. And like a big thing for me for big men, and especially why I think Vucevic is so valuable is he's on the Bulls. They have 7 back-to-backs the rest of the year. 7. That's the lowest in the league. That's 6 less than the highest numbers, which is I think the Clippers. Who the fuck else?
This is a type of analysis that Frank crushes at. I have no idea how many back-to-backs each team has.
Appreciate it.
I guess to be clear, you think this is a bad trade for Tommy?
I think it's a bad trade for both of them.
Really?
Because what I think that Scotty does when he's healthy for Danny is so impactful. And basically what you're doing for Danny is you're getting better in categories that either you're already amazing at, or you're getting so insignificantly better than the rest of the league that competitively you're not gaining an advantage. Now, this is I think that Vooch has a lot of runway to play a lot of games, but he could be traded. Like there's talk that he's going to get traded.
Yeah.
So I could be eating my words, soon if he gets traded. But seriously, the things that each of these teams get better in, I think will make them both lose more games week to week.
I think here's, I guess, big picture for Tommy's team. There's a couple fundamental questions, and Vucevic is at the heart of them for me. Yeah. So on a per game basis, Vuce has played every game this year. He's played 26 NBA games. I think it's maybe the most in the NBA. Mm-hmm. So in total stats, Vuce has been great. But I care more about per game. And on a per game basis, he's 12th in fantasy basketball. He is better than Jalen Williams and LaMelo Ball on a per game basis this year. He's been incredible. Now, most people would say, then why would you trade him? Why? And it's pretty clear this is a sell high moment on Vucevic.
Yeah.
I think either he stays on the Bulls and his numbers come back down to where they have been, or he gets traded and that plummets. I mean, we're talking he goes from a top 20, 30, 40 player. It depends where he goes.
Yeah.
But if he's going to, Phoenix, or if he's going to Miami, it's going to be very different.
Yeah.
And I would trade him now. I would try to get value for him, and I think
at his probably all-time high. I mean, he's a top 10 fantasy player this year.
If we're talking in a vacuum right now, who I'd rather have in fantasy, Vooch or Scotty Barnes, I'm taking Barnes.
Yeah.
I would take Barnes over Vooch right now.
Even with those injuries.
I don't think the Vooch stuff is going to hold. But what if we remove Vooch and Scotty Barnes from this trade, and it's just Siakam for, say, Brandon Miller?
Walk me through your thoughts there.
I don't think Siakam brings anything to Tommy's team. I think Siakam's having a little bit of a gross season. Yeah. And I think what he's bringing are things Tommy doesn't need him to bring. But I do think Siakam, especially being healthy, could really help Danny's team.
Yeah.
And I think trading Brandon Miller for Siakam gives Tommy this upside and gives Danny just a lot more value now. And I think Siakam's a good player. So a good enough player to roster.
This is not a bad trade. The Brandon Miller ankle injury being unknown would make me, if I'm Tommy, want to wait until there's something definite. There's dates. There's no dates. I can't find any dates on him. That's what I was just trying to do. I had no idea. If I'm Tommy, though, I think that I'm more likely to do that trade than the other one. I just don't think Tommy trades Vooch. I think that Tommy's if I was in his shoes and this guy that I got for a really good price is a top 15 player, no fucking way I'm moving off of him. Because there's no way in my mind I'm getting the draft day value back, which may or may not be illogical. But I don't know. I also think if Vooch falls off and is a top 25 player the rest of the year, that might still be better for me than Scotty.
I'm gonna see where Vooch finished last year, because nothing has changed for Chicago.
Yeah.
other than they've added Giddey and Lonzo.
Which I think that kind of thing always helps big men.
It does help big men. It does. So last year, Vooch finished...
And especially two good defending guards coming in always helps a big man because they're working less on the defensive end, so they can contribute more to fantasy.
I agree. Last year, Vooch finished 54th.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Can you imagine if he finished top 30 this year? He's on path.
He's totally on path. I just think... So he was 54th last year. Scotty Barnes was 20th.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be more indicative of what they'll be when Barnes comes back. So, let's total pivot unless we need to take a break.
No break needed.
Perfect. No break needed. Let's talk Blake's team.
I love it.
Hard pivot.
Hard pivot to Blake.
So, been burned a bit by injuries. Franz going down has been tough. I think some of the guys he spent low dollars on out of the auction.
He should have traded me Franz when he had the fucking chance.
Should have traded. Yeah, there we go. It's an interesting approach having the trio of point guards with Halliburton, Dame, and Fox. I think the big thing here for me is being as you have depth at point guard, and he's picked up Tyus Jones, who I think might be able to backfill Halliburton a little bit, means let's trade Halliburton. Let's start thinking because, right? I mean,
yeah.
You still have Fox, you still have Dame Lillard, and I'm saying like Tyus is just discount Halliburton, get Halliburton out.
Yeah.
What do you get back for Halliburton? And I think for me, you want more than one player because I think this team is thin. He's got, I think, 3 or 4 full-time streamer spots right now, and I know he loves doing that. Blake has the most games played in our league by a lot, and it's because when you look at his team, he's got Duncan Robinson, Isaac Okoro, Tari Eason, Goga Badatse, and Bobby Portis.
Yeah, he's very brilliantly every week finding players who play 4 games that week, brings them in, and then has like 1 or 2 guys he moves in and out.
And I think he wants to do that.
Yeah.
I think he wants to be playing that game.
That's where the joy comes from.
It does, until playoffs.
Yeah.
And when you get into playoffs and you're going to play against a team that has 8 really good players or 7 really good players, and they can still use the 2 or 3 waivers to maximize games played, because that's kind of the breaking point, right? You can only use 7 waivers. If you could use an unlimited amount of waivers, only have 4 or 5 players and get as many as you want. But when you only have 7 waivers, literally 8 guys kept on your roster, and maximizing your 7 waivers for your 2 streamers will give you the same amount of games played as playing it with 5 streamer spots. Yeah. So I think he needs to trade Tyrese Halliburton for 2 good players. And the 2 that I think make the most sense here are to Jacob for Jaylen Brown and Zach LaVine.
Yeah, this one is super fun. I think it's super fun because the conversation that we had last week was all about how many stream slots you should have.
Yeah.
And like the central theory, philosophy behind streaming waivers, yours being having 9 guys is very useful during the regular season. Blake's being he wants to have 3, 4 stream slots open.
Yeah.
I think there's a chance that I think injuries burn hotter when you leave like 4 or 5 stream slots open. So when Fritz goes down, that is painful. That is really painful. Mm-hmm. Blake's been doing very well this season for what I think is like a pretty top-heavy roster. That also, I think he just got very lucky with Franz being as good as he is, or has been. I think if Franz plays the level he was projected at, Blake is so much worse. And that's, I think, because of Tyrese Halliburton's inconsistencies. I think that Blake was sort of baking on Tyrese having like game to game a more consistent year. He's just not had that. Mm-hmm. And then also this idea of like with that inconsistently streaming guys in, I think it just gives you inconsistent data week to week to base stuff off of. Yeah. So he's playing catch up constantly. But again, he's been doing a brilliant job with the team that he's got.
Yeah.
Guessing at With this trade specifically, I think Jacob wins out to a tremendous extent.
Okay.
Guessing at what Blake wants too, I don't think this could happen, but I do think it makes both teams better. I think it makes Blake better, for sure. And then I think he should do it. Halliburton gets a lot of hate because of this weird inconsistency thing, but the bad games do balance out with the good games fine. And so because of that, I think that Jacob will be more open to that idea. I think the way that it looks is, I think that, what is this? I think that Blake gets impacted in points, rebounds, gets worse in field goal, better in free throw. But that's because he's oh no mind. He gets better. Okay, I see.
I gotta imagine it's basically Levine and Jaylen Brown, their stats versus Tyrese and a streamer like a Duncan Robinson, and I gotta imagine that's uplift in field goal percentage, threes, points, rebounds.
Yep.
Maybe steals, maybe blocks, depending on what that streamer spot would be. I think it makes a lot of sense for Jacob too, being as Jacob has.
He's a very deep team.
A very deep team, specifically shooting guard, small forward depth, which we can talk about next. And he's only got Jamal Murray as a point guard.
Seriously.
He could really use that point guard. The Halliburton season, I don't think anybody is thrilled with how he's played, but he's still 34th overall in per game. I mean, it goes Giannis at 32. I mean, the three guys ahead of him, 31 is Derek White, 32 is Giannis, 33 is Garland, 34 is Halliburton. That's still very good. That's still a very good player.
Yeah. And if I'm Jacob, I would want to get him before he's like fully back. Because I don't know if you've been seeing him the last couple nights, but I think there's that meme of like from John Wick where he's like, people have been saying I'm back.
Yeah.
Maybe I am. Like he fucking looks awesome. I mean, he looks.
Halliburton is John Wick.
Yeah. Halliburton is John Wick. But like the last two games, double doubling with assists, getting steals and blocks, high percentage from three. Like when he shoots 40+% from three, which is like half of the games this year.
Yeah.
Like that's a scary game. Hey pal.
What do you think of the trade, Marty?
Marty, what do you think of the trade? Come here. Okay.
Oh, he's saying you can't trade. He says you can't trade Ty Halliburton.
Maybe that means we go to commercial break.
Commercial break.
All right, welcome back. We've been rudely interrupted by my dog, so I put him on my lap. We were in the middle of talking about a trade between Jacob and Blake, which I think that they should do. I think you should both do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Do you want to go to your next trade?
Well, let's keep talking about Jacob's team. I think the idea for the trade with Blake is that Jacob's just got a ton of these shooting guard small forwards, similar to Frank's team having a ton of guards that do similar to the point guards do a lot of the same things. Jacob's got, here's his shooting guard small forward cohort. Ant, Jalen Williams, kind of, because he can do everything. Jaylen Brown, Levine, Mikal Bridges, Brad Beal, Kawhi. For a while, they had the same.
Dude, Kawhi's coming back. When is Kawhi coming back? Is he coming back in January? Maybe?
That would be interesting. I don't know. How are they doing? How are the Clippers doing? Do they need him back?
I don't think they need him back.
I don't know when Kawhi's coming back.
I would guess Kawhi comes back the first week of Jan. Maybe he storms the Capitol. Maybe he's a January 6th guy.
Jan 6th for sure, dude. Kawhi, 100%.
Kawhi's a Jan 6th guy. Yeah, the Clippers are 15-12. They would like to have him.
Yeah.
But like any team with Kawhi would like to have him back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I bet he comes back in January.
So I would trade him then.
I would too.
Jacob being down the standings no point in waiting for Kawhi. You need to win now.
Yeah.
So if I'm Jacob, I would love to trade Kawhi Leonard and another one of my shooting guards.
Yeah.
And I would love to get point guard depth and maybe another big man. Because at the moment, he's got one point guard, it's Jamal Murray,
right,
who does miss some games.
And is the most inconsistent game to game. You cannot bank on those numbers. Yeah.
By the way, Zach LaVine to the Nuggets, maybe.
Really?
That's what I'm hearing. MPJ.
From your sources.
Yeah, I think
it's Michael Porter.
I think it's LaVine for MPJ.
I think that's a great trade for the Nugs. Holy shit!
And the Bulls.
Yeah, of course. That's a fucking awesome trade.
I think it's gonna happen.
Really?
I think it's gonna happen.
I love a cross east west too.
Yeah.
I love it when they do that.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Anyway.
Well then, so even more so, right? Let's send Kawhi and Zach LaVine off of Jacob's team. Let's send them to Tommy's team.
Oh.
And let's get Chris Paul and Jarrett Allen coming back.
Chris Paul and Jarrett Allen coming back.
The trade is Jarrett Allen and Chris Paul for Zach LaVine and Kawhi Leonard.
Okay.
I think Tommy would say, I don't want Kawhi Leonard. Mentioning his name removes him from the trade. But
right.
I think this is a good time for Tommy to trade for Kawhi Leonard because Tommy's in the playoffs picture. He's up atop the standings. He doesn't need Kawhi for the next month.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so...
There's a lot there.
There's a lot there. This wasn't in the prep document that Ben sent, or at least I didn't see it. Because this is a really interesting trade. So I think that... so Chris Paul, preseason, I would have thought he's going to be a streamer this whole year.
Yeah.
He's not going to crack the top 100. He's been like a top 75 guy. He's super useful. Not particularly a points guy, but that's like, I don't know, that's fine. Mm-hmm. So what happens to Jacob's team here? He gets tremendously worse in points and threes and in free throws. He gets better rebounds, assists, blocks, field goals. Nothing happens with his steals. If I'm Jacob, I just don't do this because I see myself getting worse. I see myself getting less competitive because Jacob's like, he goes from being like a top 4 offense in our league to being a bottom 4 offense in the league just with that trade, just by getting those points off of his team. Because Jarrett Allen's 14, CP is 8. The projected points from Kawhi Leonard being 20, I don't know. I think it's just like that's too much to lose. And Zach LaVine getting 6 less points back a game from Jarrett Allen, and then and then a 1 less streaming slot. I don't know. If I'm Jacob, I probably don't do that. I do like the trade, getting rid of Kawhi Leonard, but I don't think that Tommy gives him enough back. That being said, I don't think it makes Tommy better. Also, I think it makes Tommy worse, because Tommy's. Let's look at where he's at here.
What if I amend it to remove Jarrett Allen and Zach LaVine? What if it's just Chris Paul for Kawhi Leonard?
I mean,
again, Jacob does not need Kawhi.
Right, he doesn't, and Kawhi's.
Yeah, get him.
This is my dog. He's small.
He's got opinion on trades, but we don't know what they are.
Yeah. Okay, I'm putting you down, guy. God.
If I'm Tommy, I trade Chris Paul for Kawhi Leonard. I do that trade if I'm both teams.
Damn. Yeah, I think I probably do too. Because ostensibly you're okay. Like let's just say, let's see with. Oh yeah. So I think you do this with a little bit of hesitation if you're Tommy, because Kawhi is coming back after not playing this whole year, after hearing year long like you should retire, after hearing like every dude on ESPN being like, I talked to like they're like he's gonna retire, type shit. Kawhi to me this year was one of those guys like Joel Embiid where I just took my entire soul and removed it from that conversation. So I think for me that bias is coming into play right now. I don't know how many games Kawhi plays the rest of the year, even once he's back, and that might be the issue too. Like I'm just trying to see maybe even once Kawhi comes back. So okay, the Clippers have 4 back-to-backs this year, 10 next year. He's not going to play a single back-to-back, so maybe you say that Kawhi plays, if he comes back January 6th, if he doesn't play back-to-backs, the rest of the year he plays 23 games. So that's what you're trading for, is 23 games the rest of the year. And that's the best case scenario, I think.
Yeah, I don't love Kawhi. I just think it makes, which is part of the reason why I think it makes sense for Jacob to trade him.
Yeah.
I also don't know that Tommy needs Chris Paul. I mean, he's got LaMelo and Harden and Hero and Paul George. Maybe, I don't, at a minimum, this is a lottery ticket. Kawhi would be a lottery ticket for Tommy for free, and I think it's worth that.
Yep. Okay. I like it.
Hard pivot to a team we haven't talked about yet because I'm confounded. Second time of the day I've used that word. I'm confused as to how this team is second on the standings. Mr. Nate Bear.
Dude, it's because Bear's good at this, but
he's so good at this.
This team should be in the bottom half based on the team itself. I mean this with all the love in my heart to our friend who's going to just be married to the love of his life very soon. I don't want this team. You know? Yeah.
I think losing Chet sucked because he was so good, and that was $47 in the lottery. That was brutal. And then it was just made worse by the Brandon Ingram thing. And that's why Bears roster looks the way it does. It's not because he drafted bad. It's just injuries have been tough. And I think, CJ was out for a little bit there. He'll always come back fine. So I guess now though, it's all made totally fine because he's 40-20. He's in second place.
Yeah.
It becomes a really interesting question of what you do from here. Because as I look at this team, I think it's going to start dropping in the standings as it's currently constructed.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, is there somebody on this team that we can trade to get 2 good players back that's going to help the roster just have more core players? And that can't be Shea. I don't think it can be Maxey. I think you have to protect those 2 guys. You don't have to, but I think you probably should. CJ, maybe, because you do have other point guard, shooting guards. So I would explore CJ McCollum trades, trading CJ McCollum for 2 guys.
I don't think CJ McCollum is good enough to really get
2 guys back.
No shot.
What if it's to Jacob's team and it's like a Brad Beal and I don't know.
I just don't think that CJ McCollum, I think he's one of those guys that's like on the border of being a drop always in my mind. Even though he's been pretty all right. I just don't think that he's much better than Ayo Dosunmu, which is that he also has Ayo Dosunmu on his team, and I think they're basically the same player.
I like CJ. I don't think CJ is close to being a drop. I think, and Bear likes CJ, and I
always has.
He always has.
I mean, me too.
I think if CJ were to be dropped, he would be immediately picked up, and we might say he's the best pickup of the season. So that would inherently mean he's not a drop. But
would you rather have Herb Jones or CJ McCollum?
CJ McCollum.
Yeah, I would rather have Herb Jones.
Really?
Yeah.
What do we like about Herb Jones? Is Herb Jones
his defensive stats? I mean, his steals value basically wins you steals.
2 per game.
It's such a statistically significant amount. The only thing CJ does that is significant is shoot threes, and that's the easiest thing to get off of waivers to me. The rest of his stats basically is under league average.
I think CJ's good at threes. This year he's shooting 66% of the free throw line. That's weird. He's a good free throw shooter. I'm not worried about his free throws. But threes, free throws, points, assists, steals, half a block for a guard is good, and 44% for. I think CJ. I would trade 2 good players for CJ McCollum.
I mean, Bear. There you go, right there.
Actually, I offered him 2 good players.
What'd you do?
Anthony Simons, who, depending on you believe, Anthony Simons. I think it was like Simons and.
Let's look at that.
I don't know who else. Should we concoct a trade live?
Yeah, let's concoct a trade live.
Do you think Simons is a drop?
I mean, it depends on how your team's structured. I think he's one of those like. He's one of those guys, depending on if you're punting anything.
Yeah.
But I think that Anthony Simons is
outside
Schroeder. The top 100.
It was Schroeder and Simons. Dennis Schroeder.
Schroeder's a drop.
Guess where Dennis Schroeder ranks this year?
I don't know. I think the rest of the year he'll be outside of the top, 130.
This is a total deviation from talking about Bears team.
Yeah, for real.
Just because I was hanging out with Dane, and we all know Dane's a basketball guy, I said, Dane, Dennis Schroeder's on my fantasy team.
Yeah.
Is he going to have better stats in Golden State or worse stats in Golden State? I said, I think he'll have worse stats because he's playing next to Steph. Dane said, I think he'll have better stats because Kerr has already said he's starting.
Yeah.
So it's going to be Schroeder and Steph in the backcourt. And guards next to Steph play well. Whether it's when they've had to play Pajemski, or whether it's when they've had to play Buddy Hield, or whether they had to play Chris Paul, had good so I think it'll be interesting. So I mean,
I think that Dennis Schroeder gets traded like in a day
from my team.
No, in real life, I think they're trading this week.
The Warriors?
Yeah, I think they're trading him.
Again?
Yeah.
Oh,
right?
No.
Or no, he just got traded. Sorry, he just got traded.
He got traded from the Nets to the Warriors.
Yeah, like 2 days ago.
He's been the 48th best player in fantasy basketball.
On the Nets.
On the Nets, he was having an awesome season. If maybe Bear doesn't trade CJ for Anthony Simons and Dennis Schroeder, but Bear I think should trade either CJ McCollum for 2 guys.
Yeah.
Or maybe go Bear for 2 guys.
Okay.
I don't love this trade for Bear, but I was looking around. I was like, if we're trading Gobert for 2 guys, let's try to get like 90% of Gobert coming back and get a good rosterable player. One option is Nurkic. Nurkic is similar-ish to Gobert, similar categories, similar player.
Yeah.
That's on Paulie's team. So the question is, Nurkic plus what for Gobert? I'm high on Giddey. I like Giddey, and I think Levine's going to get traded. Part of me, like I said earlier, I don't need Giddey's assists, but he's a top 10 player in the NBA in assists.
Yeah,
that's worth something, and he actually does it with power forward designation.
Yeah, I mean, Giddey's one of the only guys on Fantrax who's got 4 position categories.
Right.
I mean, that's super useful. I think if Levine gets traded, things open up for him even more so.
Yeah.
I think the injury is going to cost him the rest of this year. I don't think he comes back until January.
You're talking about Josh Giddey?
Giddey.
The right ankle?
I don't think he comes back until January.
Okay. I guess I didn't think about that.
But this Gobert for Nurkic and Giddey trade, I don't really have a lot of grips on. I mean, because I have a Nurkic bias. I have a classic Nurkic bias, for him. But this year, I would have probably dropped him by now if I was Paul.
Nurkic?
Yeah. So I think in a lot of ways, this is Gobert for Giddey. Or at least that's how I would. If I'm Paul, the way that I look at this trade is it's Gobert for Giddey. Giddey's out for some time. So what we're basically creating for Bear is another stream slot for the month of December with good possibilities of being the automatic assist winner weeks on. I think Bear does have a little bit of runway to lose some weeks.
Yeah.
So if he thinks that's going to make him a lot better, maybe go for it. But what I do think would be useful for Bear to do is to do a 1-for-2 and get Maxey out for 2 top 60 guys, 2 top 50 guys. And I think that if I'm him, I do Maxey for a forward and a guard. I think if I'm Bear, I try to actually trade with me and try to get Fred VanVleet and Michael Porter, because I think that does make him better.
I would never do that if I was Bear.
And I think it just objectively makes his team better.
Yeah. I get it. I get that those 2 guys are both solid and rosterable.
Like, yeah.
I think, but I like what you're saying. It's similar to Blake trading Halliburton. It's like trade the point guard, shooting guard, get 2 guys back. So I wonder if Maxey, at the same package, I wonder if Maxey for Jaylen Brown and Zach LaVine makes sense.
It could.
Yeah.
It easily could. I also think, like, why in the world does he have Valanciunas on the team still? Drop Valanciunas.
Yeah.
Jaden McDaniels, like, is a fine streamer, but, like, has he had Valanciunas on his roster for a while, or is that a streamer? I'm kind of confused.
I think he got him on the auction. I think Valanciunas had a decent start, and there's been pockets where he's been good. Look, like, you
can get these stats off of waivers, like, pretty fucking easy.
In one week, within the span of a week, Valanciunas had a game where he had 20 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, 5 blocks. Yeah. Awesome. That same week, he had a game with 2 points and 1 rebound.
Yeah.
Which is, it's just, he played 8 minutes last game.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Sarr came back. So anyways, moving on from Bears, I think...
My move for Bears is just drop Valanciunas.
There you go.
Drop Valanciunas, you have another streamer.
Try to make it happen.
Yeah.
Next team to talk about. We've talked about Paulie's team a little bit.
We have.
I would trade Embiid. I would try to get some stuff back. Him being down the standings at the moment, trying to hang on to Embiid is tough. I would trade him. I looked at him going to Mike Bear because Mike Bear is up the standings. We talked about Embiid going to Chris's team.
Yeah.
I think Tommy's team might make sense for Embiid if you can get something like Jarrett Allen plus something back, although I've heard through the grapevine that Tommy doesn't like that idea. It's tricky.
Yeah. Do you want to take one more break and then we'll talk about some trades for you?
Yes. Cohen's the last thing we haven't talked about. And then I say we break.
Okay.
Cohen, he's way down there in the standings. It's brutal. I actually think he's got a lot of good trade assets. This might be my favorite trade. It's Lowry and Zion for Tyler Hero and Tobias Harris.
Yeah, I think you do it.
For Cohen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get Zion off of your team.
Get Zion off the team.
Get Zion off of your team.
It's this classic, you're way down the standings, there's a guy in your injured spot. It's just like Kawhi with Jacob.
Yeah.
Trade those guys. Trade them now.
Yeah.
I think Paul should trade Embiid. When you're out of the playoff picture and you have a decent player on your IR that's not coming back soon, just sell that for something that's going to help you now.
Yeah, just try to make a run for 6th place so you can get the playoffs.
Weird things happen when you get that 6th spot. Yeah. So trade Zion. I think you might be able to get Tyler Hero if you trade Lowry and Zion for Tyler Hero.
And I think Cohen's big faults are just honestly points and threes.
Yeah.
And Tyler Hero is going to be great for points and threes.
Yeah.
And Zion, okay, yes, he's injured until January. If you think those are the only games he's missing for the rest of the year, you got to be out of your fucking mind.
Yeah.
Maybe he plays 30 games the rest of the year, but he seems like another guy like Embiid who maybe the over-under is 30, and with Zion, I would probably take the over. I bet he plays 32 games the rest of the year. I wonder if there's a way that I could bet on this, because I feel pretty strongly that Embiid is going to play 25 games the rest of this damn year.
You might be able to.
Yeah.
All right, should we take a break?
Let's take a break and then talk about your team. Okay, we're back.
And we're back.
As I said before in this episode, Ben put together all these trades, but explicitly didn't include himself because he didn't want this presence of his own team to skew how people saw the trades and their fairness. So then I thought, okay, well, how do we include Ben, who probably is the top 3 team as far as the rest of the year, I mean, I don't
nice.
know where you are in your standings. Okay, you're 5th. Yeah, I think that your record isn't like it's kind of reflective of your team's talent. I bet you finished top 3. I was looking at your team and just like thinking about Kevin Durant, as I often do.
Yeah.
Kevin Durant's been in a bit of a slump, I would say. I think like, I don't know, it's a little like in comparison to his loftiness, he has been slumping a bit, right? So I think that if you could sell him for like a top 25, maybe at a top 25, top 20 value, and get guys back off of that top 25, top 20 value, I may do a 1 for 2 if I was you. I may try to get like a couple guys to fill it up. So the first trade I thought of that I wanted to run by you is with Cohen, and that's our guy who, you know, I would argue probably wants to spread out, but adding Durant is like tough to argue against. Mm-hmm. So my trade would be Durant for Derek White and Josh Hart.
This is really funny you bring this up because out of the draft, I offered Durant for Derek White and Lauri Markkanen. Right out of the draft. And then Cohen countered with Durant and Derek White and Zion right after Zion's injury.
Okay.
So there have been these Durant for Derek White plus X discussions.
Yeah.
I do love Derek White.
Yeah.
I think he's great.
And Josh Hart's positional flexibility and defensive stats, I think, make him super valuable. His minutes per game and his usage is pretty high.
I think it's a good trade in a vacuum. I don't think I have roster space to do 2 guys back for Durant. I don't know who on my roster would you say is a for sure drop?
Anthony Simons, Dennis Schroeder, Andre Drummond.
Drummond, I would agree with.
But he's your streamer, so that doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And Dennis Schroeder's in your IR. But when he comes back, I would say you drop him.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you.
I don't think that's crazy. I mean, I think maybe what you could try to do is like, maybe you do like a Durant Norm Powell package and try to get more back from Cohen. Mm-hmm. So like Durant and Norm Powell for Derek White, Josh Hart, and maybe Zion, and you throw Zion in your IR and you just get Dennis Schroeder out of there. Would you do that?
Durant
and Norm Powell for Zion. Josh Hart, and
I wouldn't. And here's
you wouldn't do that?
No. You said Durant is slumping.
Yeah.
Guess where he ranks per game in fantasy basketball this year in a slumping Durant year?
25th?
13th.
Wow. Okay.
This is why Durant
crazy.
This is what makes Durant tricky. When he plays, even when it doesn't look like he's crushing, he's crushing.
Yeah.
Now he's getting up there in age, and he's rolled his ankle, and he got a calf bruise, and so he has these knicky-knack things. Mm-hmm. And so I'm fine trading him. I am fine trading him. But I think that the value he brings on a per-game basis, I know the stats show that it's way up there still. Mm-hmm. Last year, he actually played 75 games, and on a per-game basis, he was 7th overall, which meant if you just did total Z-scores for the year last year, he was 6th. It went Jokic, Shea, AD, Luka, Wemby, Durant. And so I put a ton of stock into that stuff.
Yeah.
And I have a deep love for Durant, but the games played thing he's gonna probably play. What's the line to get all NBA? 60? Is it 60?
Yeah.
I'll be amazed if he hits that. I think he's gonna be a 58, 59 game guy this year.
Yeah. So, rest of the season, Phoenix has 11 back-to-backs. He's been playing back-to-backs.
Yep.
He has not been missing a lot of games. That's worrisome a little bit.
Yep.
But let's just say he doesn't miss a game the rest of the year and he plays... Well, no, let's just say he misses a couple just because he's, maybe he plays 47 more. That's your best case scenario. And I think even then, that's like wishing, that's like a deep and desperate wish. I would say like a more reasonable number to assume is 40 more games played.
Yeah.
But that would still put him over 60. You know what I mean? Like I think his trajectory for games played is a little bit better than maybe just like like I'm looking at him right now. It's like it's a little bit better than I initially thought. I think that you getting though Derek White, you getting Derek White and Josh Hart. I mean, getting 2 top 50 guys for Kevin Durant is like awesome, and then throwing in Zion for Norm Powell on top of that, I think that just like obviously makes you better.
To me, that is trading the 12th best player in fantasy for 2 50 ranked guys, and I wouldn't do that.
But you got to look at the rest of the year, if and not per game value, like total projected value the rest of the year. Like even what's not per game value for Durant? What's his total value
on the season?
Because he's only played 15 games.
He's only played. Yeah, he's had the 2 injuries that have kept him out.
So
75th in total value, right behind RJ Barrett.
So he'll probably, maybe the rest of the season you're saying he'll be a top 15 guy? Because I think the rest of the season maybe he'll be like a top 30 guy.
Yeah.
And so you get the rest of the season top 30 for 2 top 50s.
That becomes a little bit more clear. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah. I don't think it's a bad trade. I don't think it's a bad trade. I think what makes it hard for my team is that I guess I don't see Anthony Simons as a drop, which means I've got a little bit of a roster construction. What I would like to do is for any of these teams that are hyper injured, or for any of these teams that, because we have how many hyper injured teams? It's Bear, it's Danny, my brother.
Yep.
So Paul, Nate Bear, and Danny.
Jacob is like pretty injured.
Jacob's pretty injured. I'd love to give those teams 2 good players.
Dude, yeah, Danny is fucked. Danny, you need to make a trade, dog.
Like, what if I did Norm Powell and Anthony Simons, who are both healthy, for Brandon Miller?
I wouldn't do that. I would not give up Brandon Miller for that. But that's because I don't think that...
You don't think Norm and Simons are good?
I think that Norm Powell maybe is top 90. Maybe he cracks the top 90 the rest of the year.
I love Norm Powell.
Yeah, you really do.
I do love Norm Powell. And I'm a classic... It's a classic case of like, this guy's on my team because I like him a lot.
Right. He's a points, threes, free throws guy. The rest of it is like, you can take or leave the rest of his stats. His threes are awesome, for sure.
Over 50% from the field.
Crazy shit.
Very good defender. Over a steal a game.
Mm-hmm. It's not actually that statistically significant for his position, though.
Right. Most shooting guards should get a steal a game, but some don't, right? Yeah. So I think like, I don't know that he's going to finish the year shooting 50%, although he does get to the rack a lot.
Yeah.
He's an interesting one. He's filling the Paul George spot. So Paul George left in free agency. They got nothing for Paul George.
Yeah.
They said, Norm Powell, you're just going to be Paul
the
George.
guy. Yeah.
And then Kawhi might retire, so now it's even more usage. So it's like, it's if they keep winning games, he's going to get some all-star votes.
Yeah.
Just because he's scoring 24 points a game. So, I don't know.
Here's another trade for you.
Okay.
Based on your response to the last one, I think you might be out on this, but I think this does make you better.
Okay.
So just like keep in mind, I'm doing these all with the idea that it actually, I think it makes you better.
I love it. The last one was close. The last one was close.
This was going to be less close for you, but I think this is a more doable trade.
Okay.
Durant for Tyler Hero and Jared Allen.
like Tyler Hero and Jared Allen. I think for a team that doesn't have depth, they should do that. I think that's a good trade.
Really?
Yeah.
Tommy, do that trade.
Well, I won't do it.
You won't do that?
Well, because I have to then attach Anthony Simons. Right? Like, who's my second guy I'm throwing in?
Yeah, I guess you attach Anthony Simons.
Who is discount Tyler Hero. And now I'm trading Simons and Durant for Hero and Jared Allen. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I think it probably makes you both better. It makes you a little bit worse in points. But then, like, way better in rebounds, better in assists, better in steals. Or no, I guess just about even in steals. Blocks you're always bad. Field goals you're better. And free throws you're a little worse. I mean, it's kind of an even one across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if I'm you and I'm thinking that Durant is only going to play, let's just say 40 games the rest of the year, I would do that. If you think Durant's going to play 45, then you probably don't do it.
Yeah, I think I don't hate that trade. I just don't think because it's a 1 for 2.
Yeah.
See that I think therein lies the problem with the Durant trade for my team.
Yeah.
Taking 2 guys back and having to drop Anthony Simons.
Mm-hmm.
It's not super appetizing. Like, that doesn't feel all that good.
Okay, here's another one for you.
What I'd rather do is Durant plus somebody for somebody.
What about Durant? This is another Durant and Simons.
Yep.
For Maxey and Herb Jones.
I was looking at that. I was looking at that exact same trade.
Funny. Okay. What are your thoughts on it?
I think it makes some sense, right? I think Bear is getting 2 guys back that are healthy, that are core pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if it's not Simons, maybe it's Powell, maybe it's, I don't know, Daniels or Monk or Barrett or one of these other guys that are rosterable guys.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Durant and another rosterable guy for Maxey, or I guess that'd have to be. I don't know who else would be on Bears team. I think in that scenario, I would probably ask for one of his 2 injured guys. I'd probably want Chet or Ingram. Chet might.
I don't think that's crazy. I mean, Chet's out until February.
I've heard he's not playing this year.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, they're saying mid-February, but what does that mean? That means
the guy that I follow on YouTube for injury. There's a guy dude. So I don't know sick. If you've. This is sick. But there's this trend on YouTube where these doctors that are actual physicians that treat sports industries or sports injuries go on YouTube and will explain how they would diagnose a thing, because teams aren't giving actual timelines to the media.
No.
And they're getting millions of views. It's actually genius. And the guy that I like, so when Durant gets a calf bruise, I'm like, oh fuck, is that 3 months? And they go, it's like, nah, it's okay. And I listen to this YouTube guy. And he talked about Chet Holmgren, and he's like, a fractured hip, 6 months.
Fuck.
Now,
that means he's out for the rest of the year.
I don't know, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not. Chet missed his entire rookie year with a broken foot. I would still trade for Chet. I'm not trying to water down his value. I think because he's an incredible fantasy player, the upside's there. I guess my point is Durant and Simons, or Durant and something for Maxey and an injured guy.
Dude, Durant, Barrett, Middleton for Maxey, Holmgren, and Herb Jones. I think you guys should do that.
I would drop Herb Jones immediately. So
I would pick him up so fast.
Yeah. If you love Herb Jones's 2 steals a game,
mm-hmm.
How do you feel about Dyson Daniels' 3 steals a game?
I mean, I think Dyson Daniels is great. I think Dyson Daniels is a top 50 guy.
I think I'm going to trade him.
Okay, the last one. Because you don't like Fred VanVleet, you're probably going to hate this. But I think that a trade of FVV one more guy for Durant might make sense for you. Because I think that Fred VanVleet's, like, again, this is you basically pumping into steals. I don't know if I would even do this, but this would be you pumping into steals and just like ensuring you win steals every week, which like you kind of do already because of Daniels.
The reason why it's a non-starter. It comes back to I can't trade Durant for 2 players because at that point I'm trading Durant and Anthony Simons.
Yeah. And
Durant and Anthony Simons for Fred VanVleet is.
But it would be Fred VanVleet, and let's just like throw in one more. Maybe it's Fred VanVleet and DeMar.
I do like DeMar. I like DeMar DeRozan. I think.
But I would need RJ Barrett to make that trade. I think. Yeah, this is fine. Honestly, like it doesn't really change me much. It does make it does make you a bit better.
We'll put it to the league. We'll get some of these. We'll get some polls out there.
Yeah, league. So if Ben traded me Durant and Barrett, and I traded him DeRozan and Fred VanVleet, who do you think would win out on that trade? That's kind of the throw to the crew. Mm-hmm. Do we need to talk through anything else? Are we feeling we need to get through any more trades?
There's one team we didn't cover.
Alec?
Yep. Alec, if you're listening.
He's not listening.
You're a great guy, and we've really enjoyed having you in this league.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Trade Theory.
Trade Theory.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yep. Peace, y'all.